So I'm Jen, I graduated in 2019, I was doing the Fashion Marketing and Communications course, and now I have my own agency called Moda PR. To be honest, I chose it because of practicality, because I was a little bit older, I lived in Chester. I'd been to Chester Uni before, studied previous course, so I knew my way round. But I'd spent a lot of time in the industry. You know, I was working like places like Manchester, London, and I'd really kind of settled in Chester. I'd got a house. So practicality was the main reason for me, if I'm totally honest. But this was a brand new course. I'd been in and spoke to the leader at the time, and it was from reading everything, you know, the course description, the modules, it really sounded like something that was right up my street, and especially with what I'd done in industry, it linked really well to give me, I guess, that leapfrog into the next step for me. Yeah, so well, I'd worked in the PR industry and celebrity management before, so I'd kind of dabbled in fashion week, celebrities, that kind of thing. I was working for a company called the Can Group, which is one of the most original talent agencies and PR agencies. They were in Manchester and London at the time. So I started there as an intern, really loved the industry, but I really wanted to kind of just cement my education. So I kind of had a choice whether to stay on there and further my career with them or go back to uni and finish my degree. So I went back to uni, and because I'd done fine arts before, I knew my way around, I'd got enough points basically. So I came in to speak to Liz at the time it was, and she said basically that I basically should just go into second year. So I only actually did the full degree in 2 years. So I entered in second year and just carried on from there basically. Yeah, I do, because it worked for me. So I was very dedicated to, you know, when I got my placement, tailoring it around what I wanted to do in the industry. You know, I was very focused on that university was something that was going to work around my work ethic and my work ethos, as opposed to me fitting into that box at university. So it really helped me to kind of carve that pathway, because it was very fluid. So with this 2-year course, because I personally did the whole degree in 2 years, you know, I didn't do the first year, I came straight in at second year and did it all in 2 years. So for me, this 2-year course is nothing but a good idea, because personally I don't think that you need 3 years. I think you just need to do as much as you can in the 2 years, do as many placements, have as much experience as you can, because I always say to people, it doesn't matter whether you've got the best degree in the class, if you've got no experience and you've got nothing in industry to show these people that you're going out for jobs with, then what's the point? You might as well just not even apply. And that's very black and white, and that's very blunt, but it's like you need as much industry experience as you possibly can. So I think the placement module is fantastic. The summer holidays, you know, when you're encouraged to go and get placements, you know, but you need to have a bit of get up and go about doing that yourself. This is uni, this is not back in high school when they're holding your hands. Like, you have to have that get up and go about you, that you're going to do that yourself. So I think with that in mind, and with the 2-year industry focus course, I think it was definitely the best place for me. Yes, because I'd worked in the PR industry before, so I knew that it existed. But when I did my placement in year 2, I went to Cosmopolitan magazine, so I got to see it from the other side. So for me as a PR, my main role is to get my clients press coverage, get in the magazines, get in the newspapers. But from working at Cosmopolitan magazine, I was on the flip side. So I was seeing the PRs sending in samples, I was seeing the PRs getting in touch, I was going to events organised by the PRs that I do now, and seeing how the whole chain worked, seeing how from when I pitch something to a journalist, what happens, how it ends up in that place. I've now seen both sides because I did this at my uni placement. So from working in a PR office at the very beginning of my career and just going from pitching, I then saw the end result from picking up a dress in a sample and shooting it on a campaign for Cosmopolitan and seeing it in the cover. Like, I saw that whole chain. So when a PR sends in sample dresses, we might pick one and it might be great from like a brand, and then that brand then gets placed in the magazines, and that's how it all comes about, and that's how the brand gets coverage. That's where the whole chain comes together, and I really like seeing that, because now I can appreciate in my job how hard it is for the journalists, but how hard it is for the PRs as well, because the journalists and the magazines get such an influx of product that you really have to have a good product to stand out. And that's why it's great, because it helps me with my clients now as well. So I can say, listen, I've seen both sides. I've been a PR and I've pitched in, but I've also been in a magazine's office and been in, what's it called? The fashion cupboard. Been in the fashion cupboard, and I've seen all the samples come in and how many they get on a daily basis. So I know how hard it is for brands to stand out, but that gives us an advantage, I think, in Moda, because I can say, this is, you know, I know what they're looking for. Yes, absolutely, especially with what's happened in the last 2 years. I mean, I think it's very obvious that people now know that they don't have to, say for example in industry, they don't have to be in an office all the time. They don't have to be running around the country all the time, going up and down on trains. It's the same with education. Like, you know, you don't have to be in uni for 3 years, like doing the same things like on the hamster wheel over and over again. Like this new course, like revolutionizing, I guess the focus on industry is so important. Like, because at the end of the day, we're all going to uni to get a job. So this really, really, not, I guess, puts the pressure on, but really puts under the microscope in terms of what you want to achieve and pushes you into that job. Because in 2 years, I managed to use the current degree to sculpt everything I wanted out of my career. The business module, my business, I created a creative agency. In my business plan, I called it Moda Creative. So I had a 360 creative agency, I had a business plan, I had everything. So even though I didn't do it straight after uni, when I realised I wanted to do it, I had all that there to fall back on. My company is now called Moda PR. I use pretty much exactly the same font as I did in my business module. I followed pretty much the same pathway, just maybe tweaked it a little bit. If that's what is going to be the fundamental value of this 2-year course, then that I think is just so important, that people understand that you're coming in and from the day one you need to be using this as a springboard for your career and springboard for what industry you want to go in. I think for me personally, when I was at uni, I used to just have to, I mean, I'm very like reactive. So when I was motivated, I had to really, really go with it. Like I had to grab like everything I was doing. But some days when I wouldn't, and I'd just be plain sailing, you'd have to just go with that. Like you'd have to know your boundaries. But when you have that motivation, you have an idea and you just keep writing and writing, you keep going with it. Like go with it. Like there's nothing bad about that. Like when people say about you being overworked and stuff like that, like I get that, but sometimes when you're so creative and you have an idea, you have to just run with it and run with it until you can't run with it anymore, and that's it. And just know your limit, I say, with stuff like that when you're at uni. Like know what works for you. You have to find boundaries within yourself. When I'm looking for interns, I look for a number of qualities, like personally in them and obviously their skill set. So PR in particular is hard. It's not your typical Monday to Friday 9 to 5. So I say that to people when you come in straight away. I'm like, if that's what you want, don't work in PR. So I look for resilience, making sure people are up for a challenge. I think in terms of their skills, I look for the gaps in what we don't have that are already there. So I have to have people that I can rely on that have those social media skill sets. I have to know people who are keeping up to date with the current trends, not just for me, for my clients. So, you know, we look after a lot of beauty, fashion, look after a lot of influencer talent. You know, I need to make sure, while I'm looking to obviously maintain the day-to-day of the business, that anyone I take on can fill in these gaps, like the social, like trend setting, looking for new talent, you know, just keeping on top of what's going on in the industry, especially when, you know, beauty standards, for example, are evolving so much, what's going on in the world in terms of news. I need interns and I need people that are going to be on the ball in terms of knowing what's going on globally. But I need people to understand that they need to be aware of what's going on in the world, that's not just in fashion, not just in marketing, because that eventually will trickle down. I think it's definitely a great idea in terms of moving on in the education side, because personally for me, I learned my biggest skills when I was in industry, and I think this type of course where you've got the blended industry and educational side is really, really important. It is having those industry practical sides. You know, they should know that their social media is so important to people in industry. They should know that social media is so important to my clients. They should know that. So in terms of the length of the course as well, I think it's 100% more practical, and the lesser breaks, in my opinion, the better, because the more time in between you have from like courses and modules, it kind of starts to detach a little bit, like maybe not with everybody, maybe not fully, but you'll get into that sense of being comfortable of having those breaks. And in industry, that doesn't happen. I think this is really, really great in getting people into that mentality as well, because when you are doing sometimes the traditional 3-year courses, when you have like your summer break, your Easter break, your Christmas break, everyone just lives for those breaks, and that's not the mentality that you should be in, especially not wanting to go into this industry, especially not my industry, for example, where it's very fast paced. But yeah, getting into that mentality where you are in industry and you don't have 6-week holidays, you've just got to carry on going. That 2-year intense period is more than enough practice in what you need, and then it just leapfrogs you straight into your career. Have that mentality where you have been working constantly, your breaks have been shorter, because that is what life's like in the industry, but still the constant mentality of being constantly working, that is what it's going to prepare you for. So during the course, obviously we had so many incredible like guest speakers coming in. These were all people working within the industry, so they were current, they'd had experience working in their fields for a long time and were still doing it. They'd moved around, you know, they had really first-hand experience. So I think that was really interesting to hear from people doing roles that some of us wanted to do, like buyers, PRs, you know, stylists, all these people, even like Tony with like being an illustrator, which you would think is quite a niche thing, but he's gone on to work with so many incredible brands because he's used these skills to adapt. He is an illustrator by trade, but he's used that to move into so many different sectors, you know, working with branding huge products, working with stylists on workshops. You know, it's just about those transferable skills. And I think meeting these people and seeing their journey is so important to students, because they need to see what they can be. But if you can't see it, you can't be it. If you can't see these people coming in, seeing what they've achieved through a very similar journey to what we're all on, then you can't really picture it and you can't put the 2 and 2 together. But that's one thing that we did get a lot of on this course, which is so honestly so valuable. And you really need to be turning up to these, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's in person. These people are giving up their time, and it's very valuable. And then after uni, I think, and one thing that I always say to people, keep a spreadsheet of your contacts or keep a notepad of your contacts, whatever works for you. And everyone that you come across during your university journey, you never know where you are going to meet them again. People move around so much in this industry. Believe me, this industry is a lot smaller than you think it is. And I think since I've left, I've definitely maximised my contacts that I made during uni, during my placement at Cosmopolitan. Some of the journalists that I work with, I now send branded products to. I now send press releases to. I work with. You don't for one second think that your placements that you do or these people that you're going to meet, you're never going to have anything to do with them again. So you need to make sure that you are A, keeping in contact with these people if you can, and B, really making a great first impression. You know, first impressions are everything, and believe me, I remember first impressions that I meet of people very well. So I think a lot of people in these industry placements in these places, they will as well. So I think that's one thing to remember. You know, just keep all your contacts, and after you leave uni, see if you can leverage them a little bit. You know, see if you can ask if you can do a placement. See if you can ask if you can shadow them for a few weeks. And that's how I basically evolved after I left uni. That's what I did. I just tapped into the contacts that I made throughout my placements, and I still had everything written down. And I think whilst you're at uni, just kind of take the time to really collate all these contacts and just know how to maximise them when you leave. Very broad, to be honest. The skills that you'll learn here and on your placements in particular will be very broad, and I say that because a lot of the skills you will learn will be in placements and in industry. Your basic skills that you're using will take you across so many industry sectors, but you need to have the skills to be doing this, this and this as well. So I think the more kind of variety you can get whilst you're at uni and learn the more skills and get as much experience as you can, that will just give you a benefit when applying for jobs afterwards. I think obviously starting my business, which is something that I did just under a year after leaving uni, during March in the first lockdown during the pandemic, which was challenging in itself to A, start a business during the pandemic, but B, like have the courage to do it, to walk away from. There was just something inside me, and I had it for a long time. I think you have it when you're at uni. I think you have it when you kind of know what you want to do, what you're meant to do. It's like you have this inner voice in you which tells you this is what you're meant to be doing, and the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. And it's so true. And I think this is why so many people did what I did during the pandemic and take that plunge into what you really, really want to do. And it was like that mentality. It was like, I already knew I had the skills, I had the contacts to start something freelance on my own. Yeah, I would say that's the proudest moment. And then, you know, also a year on after I started, I took on my first staff member, salaried full-time, which was stressful again, because you have to think you're now not just responsible for your earnings and your lifestyle, you're responsible for somebody else, because you make it work and it makes you work harder. And I think that was something that was a really proud moment as well, because I thought, no, we can do this together. To look back at where I was leaving uni, going into this job, and just knowing that there was something else better for me out there and I could do it, that I would say is probably one of my proudest moments. And I'd say to anyone, if you have that inside of you, you have that that's telling you you need to do something that you doesn't agree with what you're doing currently, or, you know, find a way to get there. Start making plans, because for me, I knew I was always going to work in PR. I knew I always wanted to have my own business. So for the years before, everything I did led up to that. My university placements, I started doing placements where I knew that I would get the experience in what I wanted to do. I started gathering my contacts. I started going to like webinars, events, things that I thought would maybe I'd meet people in the right places. When you're at uni, make sure that you're really soaking up everything that you're doing, because you're never going to get that time again, ever. I would say definitely come with an open mind. Make sure you are willing to try new experiences, because with the best will in the world, what you think you might want to do might be totally different from when you leave. So yeah, be completely open. I would say be aware of change, like be aware that at a moment's notice, things in the industry can change, because the world can change at a moment's notice. I think we know that by what's going on right now. And just be flexible. Come with a really open mind. I mean, the world of education and learning isn't what it used to be. It's not stuck behind a laptop 24/7. It's not coming into uni 24/7. So I think have that open mind where you can be flexible with the course, and then the course will work great for you and it'll be flexible for you.